Hey guys, Jessica Gunning just won the Golden Globe for her breakout performance in Baby Reindeer. If you haven't seen it yet, she's amazing. This was a Q&A before the awards campaign last year, before she won the Emmy and Golden Globe. She has a funny story about her favorite scene shooting Baby Reindeer, behind the scenes secrets about her last phone call in the show, and what the experience is like with this newfound fame from this breakout hit. Stay until the end and you'll get a sneak peek at the Netflix Awards exhibition, which is always fun. Let me know in the comments if you want to see more of these. Enjoy!
Please join me in welcoming Jessica Gunning. I love how much people love you because it could go another way.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't boo.
I know this is largely adapted from Richard Gadd's award-winning solo show of the same name, and you've been familiar with his work for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, so I saw Richard play Monkey See, Monkey Do back in 2017, I think it was, which I don't know if you've all seen all of the show, but it was Lucy, what episode 4 is based on. And he was on a treadmill for an hour, basically, during that Edinburgh show. So I saw that one. Show off. And I just thought, what an amazing storyteller he was. So he was kind of always on my radar. And then I heard about Baby Reindeer, the stage play, and I tried to get tickets, but it was all sold out. So I bought the play text, actually, which was a little bit mother of me.
Already
read it every day. No, and then so when the email came through, said, you know, audition for Baby Reindeer, I kind of got goosebumps. I thought, oh my God, I'm so excited to see how it translates, you know, from stage to screen. And it was honestly one of the best things I've ever read, ever.
Yeah.
I just read it in one go and just thought it was incredible, really, yeah, for it. So obviously the dynamic between Martha and Donnie was really important, so I completely understand why that was. So we did quite a lot of scenes. We did like the cafe scene from episode 1, and we did the scene outside the club where she says she wants to kind of zip him up and smuggle away inside. So there's ones we focused on, and then further down the line we did more of the kind of episode 3 scenes. We did a big array of all of them. Yeah. And it was great because he was in the room to act off of, and Veronica Tafilska, our director for the first 4 episodes, who kind of sets the tone of the whole show, really. She was amazing and was there in the audition too, yeah.
It's just, did you ever have to send in like a video of scenes first? Was it done over tape, or was it always in person?
No, it was in person, which is actually quite rare nowadays, because as you know, there's lots of auditions that happen on tapes now, so it was great to be in the room with them all. Yeah, I think that Richard's writing is so incredible, but also the character of Martha for me, as soon as I read the script, I really got her. I think that's why I kind of fought for it, really. I never would do that usually. I would kind of think, well, what's meant to be is meant to be. I'll do my thing, and if I'm right, I'm right. But I just kept thinking, if anyone got this part and they played her like she was crazy, or they played her like she was a villain, you'd spoil the whole thing, because she isn't. She doesn't think she is, and she isn't really. Her action can be received in a problematic way, but her intention is never that. Somebody asked me about her lying, and I got quite protective of her, because I was like, I don't think she knows she does. I don't think she thinks she does. I think that there's a real honesty to the character, and she's so complicated, obviously, and it was a real challenge for us to kind of navigate that, but obviously having Richard there was amazing, and our directors, Veronica and Josephine, were incredible. We worked really well as like a team, just trying to get all of those shifts, because she can experience an array of things in like one scene. Yeah. So it's really important to get that balance right, so it never felt over the top. It all felt like rooted in a believability, because I think if you ever went the other way, you lose your connection to him as well. If you start to kind of doubt her and think that she's a villain or crazy, then it just changes the whole point of the show, really.
I'm sure, just not only as your co-star, but as the creator and the writer, you and Richard had discussions about this. Was there anything he told you or mentioned to you, or the questions you asked that maybe gave you a certain insight into her?
For me, I don't want to spoil things, but there's a final voicemail that happens in the last episode, and that was like the key for me, for the character of her. And so I always used to go back to that. And actually, in hindsight, I've heard from both Richard and Veronica that after my first audition, they were like, okay, yeah, that's Martha, you know. They thought I'd kind of got the tone right, so I don't think he ever wanted to add anything to spoil it, so we didn't have huge amounts of conversation. I mean, they could have told me in the first audition, 4 months later. Do you think I could do it? But yeah, they said that like they didn't want to kind of spoil by overcomplicating it, because everything was there really in the script. And obviously Richard's in every scene, so we didn't have huge amounts of time to rehearse and do stuff. It was all kind of as we went. But yeah, I think that the way he wrote her, I just kind of in my head just got it really. Yeah.
I have
after she left the pub, and obviously there's a lot of emails that get sent in quite quick succession, but I was researching this thing called limerence, which is like almost an obsession with being obsessed with somebody. And I used to kind of imagine that she'd go home and maybe, I don't know, act out in her head like the best case scenario of what the next day would be. And the thing about Donnie is actually, he was sometimes even better in real life than her imagination would have been. So for example, in the cafe scene, say, I always imagined that when he agreed to go for coffee with her, she'd kind of, in her head, practice that I want the Scotch broth, but I don't know if it's on the menu, as like a way in. But then he makes it better. He says, well, it's on the specials. She never really even thought of that. So the thing about their connection and the thing about why it's understandable that she felt so close to him is that, he kind of yes-anded everything she gave sometimes. He flipped back even in that initial meeting when she shows him her phone. I always used to think, how many people has she shown those contacts to and they've kind of rolled their eyes and walked away, versus him who says, oh, you must have really good dinner parties. So you can see what attracts her to him, and vice versa in a way. They're both kind of, I don't know, lonely souls who need each other at a certain time in their life, and we go on to see why Donnie behaves the way he does because of this episode 4. I don't think this will spoil anything. In the final episode where she says, you came into the pub and you were wearing a white t-shirt, and I thought in my head, you'd look great in red, and then the next day you were wearing red. So there's a side of her that feels like slightly magic around him, like they're connected. I thought he'd look good in red, and look, he's wearing it. So that's all of those little clues are kind of there in the script, just kind of try and just plot it, how he was even better than she dreamed he would be, when he wasn't as well in those moments, yeah.
But he talked about how he himself didn't know if this show would work, if he would find Martha. Was there a point where you sort of knew you had something special, or maybe just from the writing alone you felt pretty confident?
You can always gauge things with how the crew were responding, and I think that there was moments when they were like, we read the script, and then when we started, it was completely not what we thought it was going to be. I think quite a lot of people read the script and think, oh my god, this woman's terrifying, and things like that, but they would come, even in, again, I don't want to spoil too many scenes, there's a scene with Terry and Martha that happens, and when we were filming that, the tone and the feel of the set was very intense on that day. But even then, when Donnie finally says what he thinks and says, walk, I never want to see you again, the crew were like, oh, we really felt for her, So even then, everyone's torn, and I think that's the beauty of the balance of the show, is that you almost root for them in moments, which is very challenging, but then also you are aware that it's an unhealthy dynamic too, so it's a real complicated mesh, yeah. Another tell for me was the scene when we're outside the comedy club and she says, have you ever wanted to unzip people? You watched that today, did you?
Yeah.
I was practicing the lines for the audition with a friend of mine, and I said, oh my god, this is my favourite scene. I think it's actually the most romantic scene in the show. And we read through, and then she was like, this is terrifying. That's my first insight into, oh, I see this person as a different side to her, because I think it's actually really romantic to say you want to sniff up and someone snuggle inside. And, not to give too much away about that final voice message, but the reason why she calls him Baby Reindeer, I think, is also linked to that feeling of safety, tucking herself inside him. I think that all it kind of encompasses the whole thing, really. So yeah, I thought it was quite romantic. Did you? I called it something like Frank. They were like, Frank needs to be moved. So on those days when you're pressed for time, they'd be like, oh, Frank, okay, let someone go, move Frank, And there was this scene that people were watching at the monitors, and it was just me at the bar, and Richard was there, and he was holding on to Frank, and he was like, oh, why are we waiting? I said, they've got to move Frank, and he went, oh. And then he went, you're a bit annoying today, aren't you, Frank? And then he went, sorry. And I laughed for about 5 minutes. And everyone at the monitor was like, that was such a Donnie and Martha moment. Yeah. So I really cracked up, and I was like, okay, yeah. So it was really sweet. That's amazing. Going on the characters, yeah. I mean, for me, I love just working. I am so lucky that 17 years after graduating, I get to work as an actor. So my favourite thing ever is to be like part of a cast or a crew, and I always get sad when I leave a job because it becomes your life, you get up early, you're there for like 9, 10, 11, 12 hours a day, maybe even more. Have I done the math wrong? 16 hours a day, is that possible? Maybe. So you're there a long time, and you get to know all the crew and the cast like they're almost family, and then suddenly you finish and you go, and so with this especially, because I cared so much about Martha and Donnie and the story, it did take a while. And in terms of I always remember So I'm going to do a bit of a name drop here. Sorry, guys. I did a play a few years ago with Cate Blanchett. Thank you. Pick the name at the National Theatre in London. And in real life, I would get to work with Cate Blanchett maybe if she was playing the Queen, and I was like servant number 5 for a day and go, oh, hey, I'm a big fan. But for some reason, she was doing a play, and so we got to know each other really well, and actually very well, because the director, Katie Mitchell, who's a big director over the UK, she decided to set it in an S&M game. So on the first day, they were like, so Jess, your characters had a threesome with Kate's character and Stephen Delane. I was like, nice to meet you. Hello, nice to meet you. So because what then ensued was like the weirdest 5 months of my life, probably. Yeah. But one of the things she tasked us with was, I think there's a point to this story.
More about the threesome with Stephen Delane.
So the director was big into research. So she tasked me with going and finding out more about S&M aftercare and role play, and as luck would have it, there was an S&M fair in town on a Sunday at 11 a.m. in an all-bar one, which I can't think of the equivalent over here, but a bar that you'd never think that an S&M fair would be. I mean, I didn't even know S&M fairs existed, but anyway, there was one there. So me and some of the cast went like incognito to act like this is what we do all the time for research. And we went downstairs and there was a kind of seminar happening. And this lady was there, and who, again, not who I would have expected. I don't know what I expected. Maybe like, whoosh. Well, actually, there was a little bit of that next door. And then there was like workshop how to do it. And then there was this whole thing about aftercare and like looking after yourself and what do you do if you're S&Ming on a weekend and you've got your office job on the Monday. So this is fascinating. I would never have thought it was this. Anyway, she said, what else does everyone do to decompress and look after yourself? And this lady from the back went, I have a bath and a salad.
What have the last 6 weeks been like for you?
Here, dressed as a mirror ball. In the evening with Jessica Biel. So there is obviously a little bit of a difference. I wasn't doing this 6 weeks ago. But yeah, I said the other week when the show first came out, I think the first sign that something maybe had changed was I got out of my car and went around this corner and this lady just went, rah, and just like screamed in my face. And she was like, I'm so sorry, I've literally just finished episode 7. And she, imagine that, she turned her TV off, left her house, and then I was there. It's messy. I think we don't want to see things that are kind of tied up neatly in a bow, and I think there's space for honesty. Of course we can go and watch movies where we can escape, like with those big Marvel ones and dream and fantasy things. Is it fantasy? It's like, yeah, super sci-fi things. But then people also want to see realness on screen and messiness, and I think that's why people have responded. And people can handle it, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, I think it's really important with those trigger warnings for people that find it too much to not. But if you can hold that, I think it's shown that people do want complicated, messy stories, and they can take them and talk about them and challenge them, and I think that's really exciting. It's not all tied up, there's no goodie or baddie, there's no kind of right or wrong really, it's not black and white, and I think that's really shown that people can respond to that and enjoy it.
Well, that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you enjoyed this one, check out this Q&A of the cast of Gladiator 2, including Paul Mescal and Denzel Washington. See you next time.